Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the key on millions.co. Here's my profile, and here is my media feed. Now, let's get to the topic at hand. Week 13, college football, 12-team playoff bracket projection came out last night. Now, there are a lot of things that I don't have a problem with on this list, but there are some things that I do have a problem with. And when it comes to Notre Dame and Miami, I have a feeling that one of those teams are not going to make the final cut when it comes to making it to the 12-team playoffs. So, first, I'm going to start off with, okay, we all know that we have Ohio State at 1. We have Indiana at 2. Texas A&M at 3. Georgia at 4. So those are the top 4. I'm going to go into all of those schedules. And yes, everybody, I do know that Alabama is number 10. I am going to talk about all of these teams and their schedules that are on this list. Now, first off, I am going to start off with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State Buckeyes, more than likely, they are going to finish the season undefeated unless they lose to Michigan, and they are playing in Michigan. In Michigan. So when I look at the Buckeye schedule, have they really had any tough tests outside of Texas, and that was early in the season? No, I can say no, because when you look at Grambling and then you look at the opponent that they are going to face on Saturday, Rutgers. Now, they are going to beat Rutgers. And when we look at Ohio State's schedule, every season, it seems like they only have a 3 or 4 game schedule at the most. At the most is 3, because check it. Let's see. You got Michigan. You're always going to have a tough game with Michigan. Then you may have maybe 1 or 2 ranked opponents. And I think that once Ohio State played Illinois earlier in the season, I believe the rankings committee, they were being generous when they let Illinois become 17. Put Illinois at 17, excuse me. Because Illinois, they were not deserving of being in the top 25. They weren't. Now, Michigan, on the other hand, they have been keeping pace and treading water. They almost lost to Northwestern. But they didn't, and they have been ranked for, I believe, Michigan, they have been ranked for the last 7 or 8 weeks, I believe. Yeah, the last 8 weeks, Michigan has been ranked. Since the start of the season, excuse me. Michigan has been ranked every week. So I have no problems with Ohio State. I believe Ohio State is the one team that whoever they play in the playoffs, they are going to take care of business and put their opponent to bed. The next team I am going to cover in the projection rankings is the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana Hoosiers, same thing when it comes to their schedule. Now, their schedule has pretty much been lackluster. We can see that, and we can say that. We also see where Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Okay, first 3 games, they started off 3-0, which nobody had them losing any of those 3 games. Then you face Illinois. Now, like I just said a few seconds ago about Illinois playing against Ohio State, it's the same thing that I'm going to say for Indiana. We knew that Indiana was going to blow out. Well, excuse me, not blow out, but we knew Indiana was going to win over Illinois because Illinois, it's not a football school, it's a basketball school. And one thing I can say about Indiana, Indiana is in the same boat as Illinois, but only thing Indiana has done is just win. Now, credit. They did beat Oregon, but Oregon, it seems like they are a slightly above average team. That's what it seems like to me. And you finish out the season, well, Indiana's going to finish out the season with Purdue. They are going to win that game. So you are going to have, so the committee, I'm going to say this, the committee is going to have at least 3 teams that go, well, at least 2 teams that go undefeated, whether it's Ohio State, Indiana, or let me see, or Texas A&M. Now that's the third team. That's the next team I'm going to go talk about. Now, one thing I can say about Texas A&M, when we look at their schedule, we also have some what if factors when it comes to their schedule. We do. And we look at their schedule, let's see who they played and let's see who they won against. Okay, they played against at the time, number 20 LSU. Then they played November 8th versus Missouri. And early in the season, they beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame on their home field. So you have 3 top 25 wins on your schedule. But all of that is going to, they are going to push that aside. Because I believe when it comes to the last game of the season and you're playing against Texas, now that's the Texas State Showdown now. Right, that's the Texas State Showdown. I believe that the committee is going to judge Texas A&M off of their last game and what they've done throughout the entirety of the season. And then what they'll do is after on Selection Sunday, they are going to look at the game that the Aggies played versus the Longhorns. Take that into consideration too before they look at Notre Dame, LSU, and Missouri. And we already know LSU is at the bottom right now, at the bottom of the barrel. Missouri's at the bottom of the barrel. Notre Dame, they haven't lost a game since week 2, so they are still in the hunt for the playoffs. Now, when it comes to, let's see, the next team that I am going to talk about on this list, the next team, Georgia. Let's talk about Georgia. So one thing about Georgia, we know that the last 5 years they've been in the thick of things when it comes to the playoffs. And when it comes to their ranking, they are 9-1. Here is their schedule. And let's see the rankings and their schedule. So right now, currently, Georgia is ranked number 4. Their wins against ranked opponents, number 5, Ole Miss. That's valid. Number 10, Texas. Okay, Texas, we all know that Texas has had an up and down season. They lost to Alabama. We all get that. Now, Alabama should be ranked ahead, but I'm going to get into Alabama a a little bit later on in the show. But another thing that I can see, Georgia, they face Charlotte this coming Saturday. And then the following Friday after Thanksgiving, November 28th, they face number 16, Georgia Tech. And I'm looking at this matchup now. Georgia Tech, they pushed the Georgia Bulldogs to the brink last season. They had a 8-game overtime thriller. Georgia Tech is one of those teams that can really monk up the game, make it look ugly, and find a way to keep it close and win it at the end. But I do believe that Georgia Tech's defense is going to, they may not neutralize Zachariah Branch when they face him, when the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets face the Bulldogs, but this is going to be a close game no matter what. And for Georgia, they still have a chance at making it to the SEC championship game. And there are about 5-6 teams in the SEC right now that have a legitimate chance at making it to the SEC championship game. Georgia just happens to be one of them. And another thing I can say is when it comes to this list, every one of these teams every SEC team on this list, they have an opportunity not just to host the SEC championship, but they have an opportunity to win it all. They do. Now, the next team I'm going to cover is Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech, we all know that Texas Tech is number 5 right now in the college football playoff rankings. When you see that schedule, I have a bunch of what ifs with the Texas Tech Raiders schedule. I always say you play who you play on your schedule, right? You play who you play on your schedule. But there's only 2, and I do mean 2, ranked wins over ranked opponents. Number 16, Utah. Number 7, BYU. Okay, so now we look at the Texas Tech Red Raiders. We know that they have one of the best offenses in college football, and their defense is kind of decent. But are they going to be able to keep it close with a team like Tulane, if that is the potential first round matchup for the Texas Tech Red Raiders? And this is all based off of speculation and projection. We still have 3 more weeks before Selection Sunday comes. We do. But the team that I see as far as Texas Tech, yeah, I could see them winning. I could see Texas Tech winning their first round matchup and then playing against a team like Georgia, Texas A&M, or Indiana, and somehow Texas Tech will lose because Texas Tech, they don't have experience being in the playoff. Indiana, they have experience courtesy of last year. Texas A&M, they are another team that's inexperienced. Now, I could see Texas Tech and Texas A&M playing each other and having it be for the Battle of Texas. But Texas Tech, when you look at Texas Tech, their overall schedule, it don't fit the bill for me. It don't. Because throughout, now, they've only played 2 ranked opponents on their schedule, and projections show that Texas Tech, they are favored to win over West Virginia. So I'm going to just go ahead and put them as an 11-1 ball club. But that's against subpar competition. In the playoffs, you're gonna be in the playoffs. The Texas Tech Raiders gonna be facing teams you don't know who you're gonna face. But if it's according to this list, Texas Tech, when they get out of the first round, they're gonna have trouble on their hands. They are, because you're gonna be messing with top tier competition when you get to the second round of the playoffs. So Texas Tech, number 5 right now. Let's see what they can do, and let's see how the Texas Tech Raiders are going to finish. Red Raiders are going to finish the season. Now, they are idle this week. They don't have a game this week. They'll be playing West Virginia the following week, next week. Now, the next team I'm going to cover, number 6. The number 6 team on this list is the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, Ole Miss is another newcomer in this situation. Another team that doesn't have experience in this situation. I'm going to tell y'all all of the teams that don't have experience in this situation. Texas Tech, this is based off projections. Nothing is set in stone until Selection Sunday. So, Texas Tech, first time being in this situation. Miami, first time being in this situation. Ole Miss, first time being in this situation. And, well, that's pretty much, and also Oklahoma. Now, currently, Oklahoma is number 8 on the projection rankings. But this is the first time Oklahoma has ever been in the college football playoff period. So now we got 4 inexperienced teams, and I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going to get to Ole Miss now. Ole Miss schedule. Let's see. Let's go down the list. Georgia State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tulane. You did beat LSU at the time. They were ranked number 4. You lost to Georgia. A lot of people, including myself, thought that Ole Miss should have won that game, and preferably they should have, because you had a lead late in the fourth quarter. Late in the third. Then you beat Oklahoma, and now for the last 3 weeks, they've beaten South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, and they are going to be facing Mississippi State next Friday. And pretty soon, all in all, they're going to win that game against Mississippi State. So Ole Miss is going to be 11-1, and when you look at their high-powered offense versus their high-powered defense, Ole Miss can make the case that they can beat any one of these teams that are on this list. Any one. Now, do I think that the first round matchup for Ole Miss will be Miami? If it is, I believe Ole Miss will be able to win that game with no problem, because we don't know what Miami is right now. Because Miami, they lost to Louisville, they lost to SMU, and they have a possibility of losing to Georgia Tech. So Miami, they have been unraveling down the stretch. But back to what I was saying with the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss, all of this stuff that's coming out about Lane Kiffin and he going to this campus and the family going to that campus, all of that is just a bunch of hoopla and rumors. That is what it is. All a bunch of rumors. Now, what I would do is, if I'm Lane Kiffin, I want to finish out this season I want to finish out this season with Ole Miss, and then after the season, if there's a chance where, okay, this team, they want to talk to me, they can, but after the season. Because right now, Lane Kiffin, he is focused on the Ole Miss Rebels right now. That's what he is. He's focused on the Ole Miss Rebels, and he is focused on trying to put the best product out there for the Ole Miss Rebels to win a playoff game and go further into the playoffs and possibly win the national championship this season. Possibly. But all in all, what I'm hearing from Lane Kiffin, about Lane Kiffin, it's just all hearsay. It's just all speculation. The next the next team I am going to cover is the number 17 the Oregon Ducks. Oregon Ducks, 9-1. Let's look at their schedule. 9-1 Oregon Ducks. Let's see who they've beaten. So, Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State. That was a quick 4-0. They started out 4-0. Then you face Penn State. And this is where the debacle for Penn State started to happen. Now, Oregon, they were lucky. They were lucky to win versus Penn State. Then the next week, the following week, you lose to Indiana. You face Rutgers, you beat Rutgers, you beat Wisconsin. You face Iowa on November 8th, just a week and a half ago. And you won that. Last week, you faced Minnesota, and you won that. And now this coming week, which this will also be a game that I will be covering, you face USC. Now, USC and Oregon, you know, two big team college football teams that can move the needle when it comes to getting viewership and revenue when it comes to playing a football game. Now, this is going to have playoff positioning and playoff seeding. This game is going to have it all. Now, one thing I can say about the Oregon Ducks is that when it comes to adverse times, what are the Oregon Ducks going to do? Because in an adverse situation, when they were playing against Indiana, they were in a lot of adverse situations. Now, we see where that is a loss on their record. And we get to the point where if Oregon does finish out the season on a winning streak and is 11-1, now we get to the point where do we trust the committee to judge the Oregon Ducks like they need to? Because when you look at this list, 12 teams, when you look at these 12 teams, you see everybody that is a 12 team, everybody has at least one loss. One loss. Then you have the teams that I'm going to get into in a few seconds: Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama. All of those teams, and Utah, they all have 2 losses. But I'm going to tell y'all something. The top 3 teams, Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M, they may all finish unbeaten. They have the chance to do that. All finish unbeaten. And as far as a de facto team, when it comes to having 3 de facto number 1 teams, that's what I see with Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M. Now, their schedules, all 3 of these teams' schedules, they go into question because who have they faced? They haven't faced anybody with any type of, to bolster their schedule or to bolster their ranking. They haven't played anybody. Ohio State, Indiana, or Texas A&M. Now, once we get to Oklahoma, they have had some losses they've had two losses this year. One by Texas A&M when they were unranked, and one by Ole Miss. Now, the loss versus Texas, that is going to hurt them in this way. Right now, Texas is ranked, and they could play for a bowl game. The Longhorns can. And you get to a point where you lost versus Ole Miss. Then you win versus Tennessee. Now, Tennessee is nowhere near the top 12 in these college football playoff projections. So I don't know how much recognition Oklahoma would get for a win versus Tennessee, but it is against an SEC rival. And on Saturday, they did win versus Alabama, and that pretty much put Oklahoma in the driver's seat. But one thing I can tell y'all is Oklahoma, they play Missouri on Saturday, right? More than likely, I got Oklahoma winning this game, but I'm not going to cover this game because it's not worth covering. It's not worth covering because we have other games that have playoff implications, and those are the games that I am going to be covering. But Oklahoma, they did themselves some favors by getting that win versus Alabama. Now, another thing when it comes to the ninth team in this is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the one independent team that is on this list. When you look at the schedule for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, I believe the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is going to be a team that is going to make it to the college football playoff. Now, first off, Notre Dame, check it. They lost to Miami. They lost to Texas A&M. But like I had said, in order for Notre Dame to make it to the college football playoff, they would have to win out, and they play Syracuse and they play Stanford, and I believe that they are going to win both of those games. So now we get to a point where if Miami does have a chance at making the playoff and Notre Dame has a chance at making the playoff, do you put Miami before Notre Dame, or do you put Notre Dame before Miami? Because down the stretch, Miami has did lose to Louisville, and they did lose to SMU. But you cannot base putting Notre Dame ahead of Miami or putting Miami ahead of Notre Dame just because of their first game of the season. Nobody knows what you have in a team the first game of the season. So, College Football Committee, please do your due diligence and read and look at both Miami's and Notre Dame's schedule thoroughly before you make your final decision on putting them in the college football playoff. Now, the team that I'm pretty sure everybody is wanting me to talk about is Alabama. One thing about Alabama, we all know that they didn't do themselves any favors with that first game of the season playing against Florida State. Now, one thing that is keeping Alabama in the talks, and they are hanging by a thread, is wins over number 5 Georgia at the time, number 16 Vanderbilt, number 14 Missouri, number 11 Tennessee. They just on at the time number 11 Tennessee on October 18th, and then you lose to Oklahoma, number 11 Oklahoma on Saturday. Now, the scenarios for Alabama is if they lose versus Auburn, they're not going to go to the SEC championship game. But I'm going to tell y'all something. There's a lot of things that Alabama has to improve on. They have to improve on their running game because their running game is not as dominant as it should be. As far as Ty Simpson, he is a great quarterback. He's only thrown 2 interceptions throughout the entirety of this season. Check it. That's good. Defensively, third down defense has pretty much been up and down. In Alabama's 2 losses, they've been bad on third down. Now, when you get to Eastern Illinois, Alabama, they going to beat Eastern Illinois no matter what. But the last game is Auburn. And we all know, I don't know what it is about Auburn, but for me, it just seemed like everything that like can go wrong in the first 3 quarters of a game when Alabama plays Auburn in Auburn, it's just not a good showing. Alabama, they just don't be on their P's and Q's when they head to Jordan Hare Stadium in Auburn. It has never played out well. They've always, the last couple times that Alabama has went to Jordan Hare and played Auburn, they've always had to rely on Herculean efforts, late game heroics, and it seems like you might have to do it again. And who knows? Hopefully, Alabama doesn't have to depend on late game heroics from their offense or defense. Hopefully, they can just coast through this game. But we all know when it comes to the Iron Bowl, we all know that game can go either way. The next team I'm going to cover is the number 11th team. And the team that is number 11 is BYU. Now, BYU, they've flown under the radar. BYU, their only win versus a ranked opponent was Utah. And Utah is on this list too. And after I get done with all of these schedules, I'm going to tell you all the what ifs and possible scenarios for the teams that have a chance at getting a legitimate shot at getting into the playoff. But right now, BYU Cougars, ranked opponent, they won versus number 23 Utah. They lost to Texas Tech on November 8th. Now they get Cincinnati. They get UCF. Now, do I believe that BYU is going to end the season on a winning streak? Yes, I do. Because Cincinnati, I covered Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and I told y'all that Cincinnati, they don't have a good defense. And UCF is not even worth talking about. So, is BYU beneficiaries of a so-called easy schedule because Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina, Colorado, West Virginia, Arizona. Then you have Utah, which you won that one. You have Iowa, and I believe BYU is one of those teams that benefited from an easy schedule, just like Indiana did, and just like some of these other teams that are on this list. I do. Now, the last team that I am going to cover in this is going to be, I'm at number 10, number 11. Let's see. Number 11 in the bracket projections is Miami. Okay, so let's talk about Miami. Miami, let's see. Their schedule started off the season with a top 10 win over Notre Dame. Then a couple weeks later, you beat South Florida. Then a couple weeks after that, you beat number 18 Florida State at the time. Then you lose to Louisville and SMU, and you come back and you won against Syracuse, and you won against NC State. Virginia Tech, I could see them beating Virginia Tech, and I could see them beating Pittsburgh. But I am going to tell y'all something. Those losses that Miami had early in the season, SMU, Louisville, they hold so much weight in a situation like this. See, against teams like that, you're not supposed to lose. Now, if Miami was undefeated right now, everybody would be saying, okay, Miami is back and all of that, and saying that, okay, if they play low tier competition, they'll be able to put them to bed. But it's always a what if when it comes to Miami. It's always a what if. And when it comes to their defense, like I said, the projected first round matchup for Miami is Ole Miss. Is Miami going to be able to stop the Ole Miss offense consistently in that game if it were to happen? Miami is going to have a tough time because Miami has always had a tough time during the Mario Cristobal era of stopping top-notch offenses. And I believe that is going to happen again in this case. Now, when we look at Miami as far as a team as a whole, what's going on with their psyche right now? Do they believe that they can go into a game with Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh, handle their business, blow both of those teams out, and leave no doubt out there on the field? I wonder, do they believe that? Because then you have those times where they have self-inflicted wounds, a penalty here, a unsportsmanlike conduct here, and all of this other stuff that have a significant impact on the game. And that is exactly how a lot of people say that's exactly how they lost versus SMU, which they did. Which it did. Now we get to the last team on this list, Tulane. One thing about Tulane is they do have a good team, but they are in the American Conference. And one thing I can say about the Tulane Green Waves is, hold on guys, let me put it up. Let's see. Okay, now it's up. The Tulane Green Waves First off, Tulane Green Waves, they first loss was against Ole Miss, which is a top 10 team. Well, at the time, they were ranked number 13. So you lose to Ole Miss. And that is the only ranked team that is on the Tulane Green Wave schedule. Nobody else is ranked on their schedule. Now, this Tulane, even though that they are a good team, I believe that they are going to be the odd man out in this situation. If Tulane is able to get the final playoff spot, whoever Tulane plays first, I believe their opponent would have the edge over them. I would, because you see who they faced. No powerhouses. None. And I keep on hearing speculations about Duke. They may possibly have a chance at representing the ACC. But I believe if Tulane gets in there, then there can only be one ACC team that gets in there, whether it's Miami, Georgia Tech, or Miami, Georgia Tech, and that's pretty much it coming out of the ACC, because everybody else in the ACC is bad this year. Now when we get to the finality of Tulane's schedule at Temple and Charlotte, what do we take away from the Tulane Green Waves? I don't know what we take away from the Green Wave schedule. I just don't, because all of these teams that they face, they were favored in all of the games that they won. And even in the game that they lost versus UTSA, they were favored in that one. But one thing I don't want to see, and this is it for as far as looking at the team schedules. Now let's look at the what if scenarios and the hypotheticals. For the SEC, the last team in this case right now, would be in Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Last team in, Alabama, lost to Oklahoma. Didn't knock the Tide out of the committee's top 12, but it put number 10 Alabama in a must-win mode and will keep them ranked behind the Sooners. The Tide have only one SEC loss and still have the best chance to reach the conference championship game, 71.6% according to ESPN analytics. The first team out, Vanderbilt. Number 14, Vandy jumped ahead of 3-loss Longhorns despite head-to-head loss to Texas, but remains a long shot for the field as an at-large bid. The Commodores would need to beat Kentucky and Tennessee, plus hope there is some chaos above them. Maybe if Alabama loses to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, Miami loses to Pitt, and BYU loses to Cincinnati, it can open the door, but clearly multiple things need to work in their favor. So that's one. Still in the mix, none. Out. We all know that these teams are going to be out no matter what. Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. Okay, we get to the Big Ten. First teams in and teams out would be in Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. Last team in, Oregon. This could change quickly if Oregon loses at home to USC on Saturday, as there are questions in the room about the Ducks' number 31st strength of schedule. The November 8th win at Iowa was impressive, but the Hawkeyes are now a 4-loss team and dropped out of the top 25. The Ducks also have a double-digit home loss to Indiana. Like I said earlier in the show, it's not going to help out Oregon when we get to the end of the season and they look back at that Indiana loss, which is why their chances of reaching the Big Ten title game are only 12%. Okay, first team out, USC. Like Oregon, USC just boosted its resume with a gritty, close win against a talented Iowa team that fell off of the ranking with its fourth loss. The Trojans' two losses were by a total of 12 points to Illinois and Notre Dame, and were both on the road. USC has a critical win versus number 18 Michigan, which boosts its status, and it gives the Trojans a tiebreaker in the Big Ten standings. If USC can win at Oregon and avoid an embarrassing home loss to UCLA, the Trojans can unseat the Ducks as the Big Ten's last team in. They would likely finish behind Notre Dame, though, because head-to-head result. Still in the mix, Michigan. The difference between number 18 Michigan and number 17 Texas is that the Wolverines are still mathematically eligible to reach the Big Ten title game with a 3.6% chance, according to ESPN Analytics. The Wolverines avoided elimination Saturday with a narrow 24-22 win at Northwestern. They still have a chance to beat the committee's number one team in rival Ohio State, and nobody in the country would have a better win if that happens. If Michigan can run the table, it would have one of the best 2-loss resumes in the country, but would it be ranked behind USC unless the Trojans lose again? If USC loses to Oregon and Oregon loses to Washington and Michigan runs the table, the Wolverines will have a strong case to be in the Big Ten's third team in. The Week 2 loss to Oklahoma looks better now that the Sooners are a top 10 team. Out are Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA, Washington, and Wisconsin. As far as the Big 12, Texas Tech would be in. The last team in, Texas Tech, at number 5. Red Raiders are within arm's reach of a first-round bye and have the best chance of winning the Big 12. 69.5% according to ESPN Analytics. Texas Tech has a bye this week, can clinch a spot in the Big 12 title game if both Cincinnati and Arizona State loses. The October 18th loss to Arizona State won't keep Texas out of the CFP if it finishes with a 2-loss Big 12 runner-up, given how highly the committee has regarded Texas Tech to this point. The chances that became even better after Arizona State appeared in the ranking at 25, easing some of the pain of that loss. The Red Raiders in the regular season at 4-7 West Virginia. The first team out, BYU. The Cougars put all together during Saturday's dominant win against TCU, but it would be excluded from the playoff in order to make room for one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. BYU still has the second best chance to reach the Big 12 title game. 80.2% chance behind Texas Tech, 97.5% chance they can clinch a spot with a win Saturday against Cincinnati, and losses by Arizona State and Houston. If BYU wins the league, it's a CFP lock. If BYU loses, though it would depend on how close the game is, the selection committee is highly unlikely to reward BYU with an at-large bid if it plays poorly as it did against Texas Tech during the regular season. Still in the mix, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Utah. According to ESPN Analytics, Utah still has an 11.9% chance to reach the Big 12 championship game, followed by ASU 8.4 and Cincinnati 1.9%. Teams that are out: Arizona, Baylor, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, UCF, West Virginia. Okay, ACC, the team that would be in, the last team in, the Miami Hurricanes. The number 13 Canes are listed here because they are the selection committee's highest ranked ACC team and are still mathematically eligible to reach the conference championship game until the participants of that game are clear. The committee's highest ranked ACC team will continue to appear. With 6 teams still in contention, the most fair representative is the committee. Still, Miami chance at reaching the CFP right now is tough. An at-large bid, the Canes only have a 7.1% chance to reach the ACC championship game. To get an at-large bid, Miami still needs to beat both Virginia and Pittsburgh and hope losses above it to move to the top 10. ACC champion will earn the number 11 seed, and the group of 5 champion will have the number 12 seed. So Miami needs to jump to number 10 by selection day. It's not inconceivable if Alabama loses to Auburn, BYU loses to Cincinnati, Utah loses to either K-State or Kansas. It will take more than one of those things, if not all 3, in question. The question will be if the committee ever revisits Miami head-to-head win against Notre Dame in the season opener, the Canes would likely have to creep closer to the Irish in the ranking for them to be compared enough to use the tiebreaker. Georgia Tech can clinch a spot in the game with a win against Penn on Saturday, and Virginia can clinch with losses by Duke, Pitt, and SMU. I told y'all Georgia Tech still has a chance. The first team out, Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, beat a 1-10 Boston College team by 2 points in spite of themselves and are a win away from a guaranteed appearance in the ACC championship game. I said this earlier in the season. They've also got a chance to earn a top 5 win in the regular season finale versus Georgia. If Georgia Tech doesn't beat Georgia, it would need to win the ACC to reach the playoff because a 3-loss ACC runner-up is out. Still in the mix, Duke, Pitt, Pittsburgh, SMU, and Virginia. Virginia has the best chance to reach the ACC title game, 77.7%. SMU third, 38%, followed by Duke, 11%, Miami and Pitt, 7%. Now, out, the teams that are out: Boston College, Cal, Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina, NC State, Stanford, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest. Independent. Notre Dame would be in at number 9 ahead of 2-loss Alabama. Notre Dame is winning the eye test. because it is ranked behind Alabama in both strength of record and strength of schedule. Alabama has the number 4 schedule in the country, while the Irish are number 29. Notre Dame's best wins are against USC, Navy, and Pitt, with only number 15 USC ranked this week. As long as the Irish end the season with wins against Syracuse and Stanford, their place in the playoff should be secure. Group of five. Who would be in Tulane? The Green Wave have decent wins against Northwestern, Duke, and Memphis, and the best combination of the eye test and resume of the current North Texas, number 127th, and Navy, number 74. Tulane and North Texas are the most likely teams to play the American Conference Championship, but North Texas has the best chance to win the league, 61.4% according to ESPN Analytics. Still in the mix is James Madison, Navy, North Texas. Of these teams, JMU has the best strength of schedule with number 24 and game control number 40 ranks, but the worst strength of schedule number 119. Navy has the best win against South Florida and the best loss to Notre Dame, but lost to North Texas. Now, this is what the bracket would be like. And I'm going to give y'all my finality on these games. When it comes to all of these teams, these are some good matchups, but we have a lot more things to talk about, things to look at. We have quite a few matchups in the coming weeks, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that is going to determine who is going to be number 7 or number 8 in the playoffs. So, one last thing I can say is, with that, those are my reactions to the Week 13 12-team college football playoff bracket projections. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Keytime Sports right here on YouTube. Key City Sports on Instagram. And the Key on Millions.co. Here's my media feed. And one thing, college football playoffs are right around the corner. And teams, a lot of things are going to happen within the next 25 to 30 days. There are so many different scenarios. I read them all off to you now. Every scenario, it remains to be seen. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Again, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Keytime Sports right here on YouTube. Key City Sports on Instagram. The Key on Millions.co. Here is my media feed. And remember, everybody, one last thing. The Key is always on time.